Hello, welcome to our webinar Wednesday session from PhUSE. My name is Sascha Ahrweiler, and before we will start with our interesting agenda today, I want to give some updates on behalf of the PhUSE Board of Directors in my role as a PhUSE Communication Director. The agenda for today is pretty interesting. We will hear a couple of words from Sam Warden and Jasmine Kestemont about the management stream, which will take place, or which is part of the PhUSE annual conference this year. And after that, we will give an update about the emerging trends and technology working group about blockchain technology, and this will be presented by Disa Lee Choun from UCB, and that will be followed by a Q&A session. But before we start here with our interesting agenda, I would like to give a short update of what is going on at PhUSE on behalf of the PhUSE Board of Directors. So as you all know, at PhUSE we are organizing big conferences, and we are in the hot phase here for the preparation for our European conference, which will take place in October in Edinburgh. There are still some limited seats available, so in case you haven't registered yet, you can do this via the PhUSE website. The registration for our hands-on workshops will be held which will be held during the conference will open next Friday. And we are also making really great progress with the planning of the US conference, which will take place next June in Raleigh in North Carolina. And now here our conference chair, Jim Johnson, and his co-chairs, Jennifer True and Tarek Peterson, they now have identified the conference committee, which will help to run the individual streams. The registration here and the call for paper for this first multiple-day PhUSE US conference will open in October. But now PhUSE is more than a conference. Actually, more than 50% of our work is dedicated to all the working groups, where we will hear an update about the emerging technology working group later today. And we realize that as board of directors, that we have multiple working groups, like the CSS working groups, or the Future Forum, or the KPI, or Data De-Identification group. And we have seen great things coming out of these groups, like the data reviewers guides, for example. But so far, we haven't had a seat at the board table for the working groups here. And after a discussion, we decided to post the working group directors position. And just recently, Chris Price and Scott Balavouni have been appointed to actually share the role, because we have so many working groups ongoing, and they both will represent these working groups at the board of directors table. And in this role, they will closely collaborate with agencies such as the FDA or EMA and PMDA, but also CDISC. So expect some updates here from these two nice guys in the upcoming future. And my last slide is about some reminders here. You will see a call for outstanding contribution awards quite soon. So here as you all know, PhUSE is an organization which is run by volunteers who do really a great job across the world. And every year we ask our community for nominations for our outstanding contribution award to those who have helped to shape PhUSE and the entire industry. So if you want to nominate someone who you think did an outstanding job in the past year or even longer, please send a short mail with a short justification to our PhUSE office. I also want to give you a heads up that the next single day event will take place in France in September. Registration is open already. And as usual, the single day event attendance is free for all PhUSE members. Stay tuned for more detailed news. There are more and more detailed news to come. If you want to stay up to date, you can always follow us on social media via Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. And next week, we will also update you with our monthly email shot. And in case you want to have all PhUSE communication in one hand at one time, and also at the time you want to read it, we have the PhUSE app as well, which you can download for free from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. That's it from my side. And without further ado, I want to hand over now to Sam, who will give an update about the management stream. Sam, over to you.
Thank you, Sascha. So I'm going to share this presentation with Jasmine, who is a co-chair of the management stream as well. So today I'm just going to talk to you about the management stream, who's chairing it, a little background of how it came about and what it does and how it's constructed. We'll talk a little bit about the planned sessions and a new feature for this year, which is the networking lunch. So Matt Jones, Managing Director of Veramed, is the stream chair, and Jasmine and I are co-chairs. I'm Director of Life Sciences at DWise, and Jasmine is a Managing Partner at Innovion. So the management stream has been going for the last, I think this will be the third year that we've had it. It's very successful. It's a full day's worth of content, although this year it will be split over 2 days. Content is invited, unlike the other streams at the PhUSE conference. And so each session is a little bit longer, an hour and a half or 2 hours, which means that they are very interactive sessions. They're open to everybody, and you can participate in them during the conference as you see fit. So we have these 4 parts to the management stream this year. The first is on Monday from 11 till 12:30, so just after the keynote speaker, and it will focus on creating your web of risks for vendor risk management, and Jasmine's going to talk to you a little bit more about that in a moment. After lunch on Monday, 1:30 till 3:30, we have a session attracting and selecting, growing and retaining top talent in your organization, the evolution of the job description. I'll talk to you about that after this slide. And then on Tuesday from 11 till 12:30, we have an exciting presentation from Tom Gray at Google on innovation, applying the Google Sprint techniques to approach problems. And then, as I mentioned, new this year will be a networking lunch, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. So over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you very much, Sam. So yes, we're very excited to have a very diverse management stream agenda this year. So we're going to kick off with Monday after the keynote speakers, creating your web risks for vendor risk management. What Michael and Daniela will be focusing on is the addendum to ICH E6, so the second revision after many years of E6 ICH guidance. What that really means. So I'm sure many of you have read that guidance, or if not, now's a good time to read it so that you're prepared for the conference. But what hasn't changed is that while you can outsource activities, send them to CROs as a sponsor, you still remain accountable or finally responsible for your deliverables or for the activities that you outsource. What is really new in this ICH E6 second release is that there's a lot more focus on assessing your risks and what that means. And that is quite new for our industry, which in past has been quite risk averse, but we all recognize that clinical trial studies and research is becoming more and more complex, so we will have some level of risks. What is interesting with this session is that Michael Whitworth has been working for many years in life sciences. Daniela Schussler has a background in oil and gas transportation and the public sector. So they're going to look at what some of the approaches are in other sectors around risk and see how we can apply them in our sector, being the life sciences. Chaucer has been working quite a bit on this, so I'm sure they will bring some very exciting thoughts and practices and best practices to this, and they look forward to an interactive session with you. Sam, if you can go to the next slide.
Okay, so I'll just introduce this session, which is going to be run by Gary Latham from DWise. He is DWise's Manager for Global Recruitment. This session was solicited based on a lot of feedback from many of you at the previous conference, saying that one of the key problems facing our industry today is really attracting and selecting and then retaining top talent within the organization. And so this session is going to look at the history of that and the evolution of the job description, how the job is changing over the time, and it's going to bring in some information from one of the working groups on the job description. But essentially, the creative part of this session will focus on how you can make that job description ready for today. We've been using job descriptions which are very flat and very two-dimensional in the past, and so this session will give you the tools and allow you to practice pulling together a job description which is fit for the future. Then, of course, once we have hired the right person into a role, we need to understand how we can grow them and how we can retain them. And so we will have a panel discussion with some very seasoned leaders in the industry, as well as our keynote speaker, Helen Morris-Brown, who will be talking to some questions around that learning and development culture, commitment to learning, motivation and engagement, as well as ensuring we understand how to keep staff in the organization and keep them motivated and give them the skills that they need to be successful in their organizations. So that session is on Monday, 1:30 till 3:30, and we look forward to welcoming as many of you to that session as possible. Jasmine?
All right, thank you very much, Sam. Okay, and then last but not least, on Tuesday, the topic of the conference of this year is digital innovation in healthcare. So who better to talk to us about digital innovation than Google? So we were very lucky and very pleased to have Tom Gray, Head of Cloud Solution Architecture of Google, who will come and lead a session with us, a sprint session, which many of you may have already done before. Now the slide here says in just 5 days, but we're going to do a lot better. We're just going to do this in 1.5 hours, looking at some of our problems and seeing how we can apply some of the techniques, what we call the Google Sprint techniques, to approach problems in that session. So very much look forward to that one, and we'll keep you posted and hope to see you there as well. So I'm going to hand back to you, Sam, here.
Thank you. And so just to close this presentation, the final part to the management stream is a networking lunch. And the idea, this is open to everyone as well. You just need to bring your lunch. There will be tables with discussion topics and a facilitator at each table. It's a new feature for this year, and it gives everyone an opportunity to network with presenters and each other at the conference and talk about some of the topics of interest in more detail. We'll be encouraging you to introduce yourselves and come with questions that you want to ask, and also information about yourselves as well. And this gives us the opportunity to ensure that you can take the best advantage for either solving problems that you have in your organization or in your working life, or for extending your network so that you can solve problems in the future. Okay, so this lunch, as I say, open to everyone, and will be in the same room as the management stream, and is being organised by the management stream for PhUSE 2017. Okay. That comes to the end of my presentation, and I will hand over now to Disa.
Thank you, Sam. So let me start by giving a brief introduction. I work for UCB as Director Head of Data Acquisitions, and I lead a global team of data acquisition managers, clinical solution analysts, medical claim oversight manager, and I've been working in the pharma industry for many years. I'm a trained pharmacist and later on decided to pursue my EMBA. But prior to joining the pharma industry, I was a co-founder of a startup company providing IT solutions. And my interest has always been on technology and innovation, especially now in the pharma area. So this leads to this presentation and project that now is the first project that we're launching regarding blockchain with PhUSE. The title is Evaluating How Blockchain Can Transform the Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Industry. So let me start by asking, have you heard about blockchain or Bitcoin? So I think maybe some of you may have heard about Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin in the past have come on the news for the wrong reasons because it was used in the darknet or the Silk Road doing illicit activities. But to be honest, I mean, Bitcoin, the technology behind this is what it interests us, and this technology is called blockchain. So blockchain is basically a decentralized database sharing and storing registries of assets and transactions across peer-to-peer network. So this means that it allows that other peers throughout the network to verify the information and also hold the truth of the transaction of the asset or the data. So basically they will hold a copy. And that data or ledger, that's how we call it, is also considered a block. So each block, it links to the other blocks because it always has to reference where the information comes from or where the transaction asset comes from. So the blockchain can be private or can be also public. And what it does is that it can reduce the middleman. It's secure, it's tamper-proof. It provides immutable records. It's transparent, efficient, decreases the bureaucracy, provides anonymity, and full complete audit trail because it follows this blockchain. And the last but not least, it also enables people to own and even monetize their own data. So in order to understand blockchain, I thought to give you a brief history from past to future, and the concept of blockchain is not new. I mean, it existed for centuries, and 500 AD, the archaeologists discovered these ray stones, and basically these were kind of like a limestone carved by the people living in the island of Yap in Micronesia, and these stones were some of the big ones there. It was 2 meters high and wide. As you can imagine, these are quite heavy, so these were considered their currency. So at the time when they wanted to buy things or exchange things, these were their basically these stones passed as the currencies, and everyone knew in the village, who this stone belongs to, because these stones were quite huge and heavy to carry from one place to another when they wanted to transact. So everyone kind of like kept their own ledger to say, okay, this stone that is placed in this road belongs to XYZ person, the other stone belongs to the other person. So, again, history has proved that yes, this is not a new concept, but only more recently we started to explore this idea and building the technology. So now, advancing a few years later, yes, Bitcoin came along, and this came along around end of 2008, early 2009, and this came right after the market crash, if you all remember this. And the idea about Bitcoin is, again, is removing this, the middleman, the decrease of bureaucracy, and making the transfer of money easier and almost like free of any fees. So this application, or the blockchain application, is called cryptocurrency. And according to, some people are saying that it might have been developed by a person called Satoshi Nakamoto, or a group of people under this pseudonymous. But no one knows at this stage who actually invented Bitcoin. So in 2013, other applications on blockchain came along. So one of them is called smart contracts. Then later on in 2015, there were other applications. So some of them are, for example, the distributed cloud storage, distributed asset ledger, decentralized notary, and also the decentralized exchanges. So these are kind of like the major applications of blockchain. So in 2016, the estimation is that it was worth 210 million market. And it's foreseen in 2015 that at least 50% of the banks will start using blockchain. Also, there are approximately over more than 500 vendors of blockchain out there. And it's foreseen that in 2020, it will be worth at least $2 billion, this industry. So in general, I mean, blockchain will disrupt every industry. And only recently, we started to explore in the pharma and healthcare what this means for us. Because one of the experts, they said, well, the first industry or the highest impact will be the financial industry, followed by the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. Therefore, see that this is an exponential growth. So I would say, this is our time and our place to, start exploring this space. And what does that mean for us? I mean, how can we bring the drugs out of the market quicker for our patients and try to reduce that gap of the unmet needs? And also some other experts says that, blockchain is considered the internet version too, like how, it quickly implemented and then adopted very easily or quickly. So now let me jump into the project. So what we plan to do is basically introduce what is blockchain and describe how this works, provide the prerequisite to adopt blockchain, understand the qualities of blockchain and how this is relevant for us, and provide detailed example of the use cases and applications in our area, and a very high-level analysis of the pros and cons of blockchain in pharma and healthcare. So currently, we foresee that this will be a combination of 2 work groups in the emerging trends and technology and also in the educating for the future. So the project timelines, well, we plan to basically write a white paper which includes the overview of blockchain, analyze the current processes and ideas of blockchain where it has the most impact, so basically the low-hanging fruit, analyzing all these efficiencies, the change management, propose the use cases where blockchain will transform the current landscape. So basically not only in the clinical trials, like how we would potentially use EHR, EMR data, but also in supply chain, also in outsourcing and contracts, for example. So we foresee the timelines to do the initial research and implementation roughly 3 months, and then try to finalize this white paper 6 to 9 months. The other activity, of course, as this is a white paper, it will be published and presented. So our idea so far, I mean, we've already submitted to DIA for next year to present the white paper, and hopefully as well in the next PhUSE conference, not this year, of course, it will be 2018 in Raleigh. So the current project members in alphabetical order, company name. So we have Adama from Belgium, Christopher from Manchester Informatics, and myself as the co-lead. And then we have other members who from AstraZeneca, from Merck, Johnson & Johnson, of course, other of my UCB colleagues. So what we would like to ask is, call for more volunteers. I mean, we definitely need more people. I mean, if you feel passionate about this topic and this topic motivates you, I mean, please do reach out to any of the co-leads. In addition, we're looking for people expert in the regulatory area, and also any IT blockchain experts to help us, drive this project, and hopefully, this again, this is the first project, and we're hoping to develop more projects about blockchain and eventually do a proof of concept. So thank you. Any questions? I'll hand it back to Sascha.
Yeah, you can do.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't have any further slide to present, so let's just check in the chat window if there are any questions. So far there are none, but I would like to take this opportunity and thank to all our presenters here for their interesting presentations. And both presentations nicely showed what PhUSE is about. So on the one hand is, of course, our annual conferences in Europe and in the US, where Sam and Jasmine presented the very nice management stream plans. So that sounds really interesting. As I said, there are only limited seats available. So in case you haven't registered yet, please do so in the next couple of days because we are selling out quite quickly. And the other one, the other presentation here by Disa shows what else we are doing, so that PhUSE is more than a conference. So the working groups are really active, and we are seeing great deliverables out of these working groups, which are now adequately represented at the board level as well, through Scott Badavuni and Chris Price. And as Disa said, all our working groups are looking out for volunteers. In case you haven't seen all the names, also feel free to reach out to the office in case you want to participate in any working groups. You can also find a lot of information on our PhUSE website. And if you want to volunteer, you can also volunteer through the PhUSE website. It's all about volunteers at PhUSE. But we are the biggest pharmaceutical or biometrical community with more than 8,000 members, and you can be an essential part of that. I'm just checking. We still don't have any questions, so I think we can conclude this webinar. In case you want to show your colleagues who missed this webinar, the webinar recording will be available in the next days via our PhUSE YouTube channel. And you can also access all our videos via the PhUSE app. So with that, I would like to end and hope you will all have a great day. Goodbye.